Nearly a year after investigators say a repeat DUI offender drove drunk, crashed, and ultimately killed a woman before running to Mexico, the district attorney and sheriff say they stand by every decision they've made in that case.
But a former prosecutor told Nate Morabito from day one he made it clear he thought the Washington County Sheriff's Office should have arrested the illegal immigrant.
The sheriff's office adamantly denies that claim, saying Joe Schultz's first documented conversation with the investigating deputy came 5 days after the deadly crash. Schultz maintains early on he repeatedly voiced his opinion to that deputy that the sheriff's office needed to arrest Alan Magoyan Anaya. If not while doctors treated him for his injuries at the hospital, at the least the minute he walked out the door. Schultz eventually shared his displeasure with his boss almost 2 weeks later. That's when the DA called a meeting with the sheriff's office and secured this arrest warrant. But by then, the suspected drunk driver was gone.
It's been a miserable year.
The Skelf family's misery only made worse after a recent conversation with Washington County's former DUI prosecutor.
He thinks he should have been arrested.
Shira Branham's mother recalls her phone call with Joe Schultz.
Joe felt like they had enough to hold him on.
Citing the sensitive nature of this case, the former prosecutor would not talk on camera, but did grant us an interview. Before he left the district attorney's office last year to join his family's law practice, he prosecuted Alan Magoyan Anaya multiple times for DUI. Knowing the man's criminal history, Schultz told us at the least deputies could have and should have charged him with driving on a revoked license. Joe Schultz says, "I saw no legal reason not to arrest him immediately upon the crash or his release from the hospital."
Well, you know, I don't know the young man. If he walked through the door right now, I wouldn't know who he is. But he doesn't make the decision for me when or what I do.
Sheriff Ed Graybeal has maintained the sheriff's office didn't rush to file charges against this man for a variety of reasons.
There were so many open-ended questions. The reconstruction, there were so many questions about it that we wanted to be sure that we didn't cause something to happen with this case and get it kicked out of court.
For one, he said investigators wanted to build the best possible criminal case to ensure a felony conviction. What good is a really good case if the man is not here?
Well, the thing about that is there's no way you can tell anybody's going to leave.
The sheriff also says they had no reason to believe the man would run.
He was indicating to us he was going to stay here.
After all, Magoyan Anaya quickly hired an attorney, has small children here, had a job, and previously posted bond and served prior DUI sentences.
I think the biggest part of this case is misunderstanding about what took place, how it took place, and what it took place for.
Do you feel the district attorney's office or sheriff's office mishandled that case in any way?
Not in the least.
Despite his former prosecutor's criticism of the sheriff's office, District Attorney Tony Clark says he continues to support the decision to wait to file felony charges.
We knew within hours of this crash that he had an attorney. I say hours, 12 hours or so, I received a letter from Gene Scott saying he was representing him. So given all of that, I didn't want to take a chance, and to be honest with you, Nate, I wasn't thinking about, at that point in time, charge him with something because he's not guilty of anything yet. We assumed who was at fault, but we didn't know for sure who was at fault. And taking out a charge without having all the evidence at that point in time, a day or two after the crash, I don't think would have been, in my opinion, 24 years experience would have been the right thing to do.
Clark told us they also considered other variables, some of which are still not public today.
We have to show the proximate cause of the crash was either impairment or recklessness on part of Mr. Anaya. And I don't think a day after the crash or 2 days after the crash or 3 days after the crash we had that. Did we know he was driving? Yes. Was he driving on a revoked license? Yes. Could we have charged that? Yes. But that, in my opinion, legally was not the prudent thing to do, because I've had cases in the past where someone's been charged with a lesser offense, go in and plead, and that jeopardizes the more serious charges of vehicular homicide.
Clark calls Schultz one of the finest DUI prosecutors he's ever worked with, and said the moment he came to him with concerns almost 2 weeks after the crash, he took action, securing this arrest warrant on March 31st, which prosecutors later amended with a more serious charge.
When he came to me and said, I'm having real trouble, having a rough time with this, he needs to be off the street, we tried to get him off the street. I don't know what else we could have done. And I wouldn't have changed anything, no.
The DA says there is one more thing to consider. During the suspect's hospital stay, Shira Branham's father told us he called the hospital to check if Magoyan Anaya was still there and accidentally got connected to the man's room, where he then angrily informed him he killed his daughter. Possibly the first time Magoyan Anaya learned the crash was in fact a fatal crash. Tony Clark says while he does not fault the family in any way for their reaction, he does feel that phone call could have played a role in Magoyan Anaya leaving town.
Nate Morbido, thank you. The sheriff and the DA told Nate they've spent a significant amount of time communicating and sharing information with the Department of Justice in hopes of finding Magoyan Anaya and bringing him back here to face his charges.